Today, we're going to talk about how entrepreneurs sometimes have struggle with selling instead of, building. Right? We want to get out there and sell. This is something we talk in a lot of different ways about. Don't get too caught up in building everything. Let's start selling things. And you know, I think just in general, it's a lot of times it's easier to build something than to start selling it. And I think as entrepreneurs, sometimes we get caught up in trying to build something great. We get excited about it, especially if we're working on it ourselves, like building the websites and the systems and things like that. It can get very exciting to have everything accomplished. But at the end of the day, we need to start selling as soon as possible. And I've learned this, the hard way multiple times, and I still fall into the trap. I think everyone does of wanting to build more than you probably should before you start selling because you believe in something, you want it to run perfectly when you do launch, which I understand and I get that, and that's some people's route that they like to go more. But typically for entrepreneurs with a startup, especially first time entrepreneurs, we need to make sure that we are focusing on selling because we don't know if that new product or service is going to work, especially if it's a new concept. If it's a brand new concept, we don't know if people are going to take money out of their pockets and actually pay for this new concept. So before we go too far in building it, we need to make sure that it sells. So we want to do the minimal viable product, get it out there, and see if somebody is purchasing it. And then we can continue to build out the back end. So my advice for entrepreneurs is to build out the front end and make the sales before building out the back end too much. This is something that a lot of entrepreneurs have trouble with, including myself. We get caught up in things. We want to make them perfect. We want to build out everything because we want our vision to come to fruition. But if there's not going to be any sales, then there's no vision is going to come to fruition, right? So, we have to be careful about not wasting time. Yesterday's episode, we talked about cash flow. And so this goes right into that. Cash flow is king, right? It's so important. And so when you're building things out that don't have anything to do with cash flow, it gets tough because you don't have that cash flow coming in to actually build things. Now, here's a great example of why it's important to put the cash flow first, because when you're building something and trying to build out those systems on the back end, typically you're going to need some money for software or for staff to help. Whatever the situation is, it usually takes at least a little bit of money to keep building out that back end. So we need to make sure we get that front end done first and get sales and get some cash flow coming in so we can have the cash flow to be able to keep building out that back end how we want it to. So we got to kind of put first things first. And easier said than done, something that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, including myself. We need to stop trying to make everything perfect, get it out there and see if it sells before we get too excited about it, before we build too much. We got to get out there and see if it's going to sell. So, if you've been building, it's a great example, right? If you've been building your website for, 6 months, you haven't made $1, that's what we're talking about here, right? The perfectionism kills cash flow. Perfectionism kills launching. And perfectionism really kills a lot of entrepreneurs' journey because they end up quitting because they're trying to make everything perfect before getting it out there. You spend all this time making it perfect, you get it out there, you don't get the response you want, and it's devastating. And you don't have enough time or money to reinvest and keep doing this over and over again, or the discipline or the willpower to do that. So we want to try to get it right from the first time. We don't want to pour energy into something for years and find out it was never going to work in the first place. And that happens a lot. Very common for that to happen. And this happened with me, right? Tons of resources and time put into businesses that don't work out, or products or services that don't work out. It's just the way it goes. So we want to minimize the pain of that. And the way we can minimize the pain of that is doing everything we can to get to that conclusion as fast as possible, whether people are going to buy it or not. and if there's going to be cash flow from it or not. And then that way we can adjust accordingly what we're doing on the back end. And maybe there is cash flow coming in. Maybe it does work, but maybe it doesn't work as much as you thought. So maybe you're not going to build out the back end as much as you thought you were. Right. And so it's important to get this information as soon as possible. I think one of the most harmful kind of feelings as an entrepreneur is once it's ready, I'll start selling. I think that mind state kills so many dreams and traps so many entrepreneurs to, not follow through and not accomplish their goals and dreams because they have that mind state of once it's perfect, I'll start selling. When we really need to flip that and say, I'll start selling so I can make it perfect. That's what we want to do. We want to kind of flip that on its head and say, once I start selling it, then I'll make the back end perfect. But first I need to, get the front end looking as good as possible. And we'll perfect everything else later after we get some sales. And, this has to do a lot with psychology. I understand it's harder to sell than it is to build. And so, the fear of rejection, the fear of selling in general, these are things that kind of get in the way of wanting to move on to the selling point. But the selling point is the key, right? We should be focusing on, building out, building out the platforms that we're going to use to get the sales, building out the ads, all that kind of stuff to get people in the door, the CRM, the automated emails and texts and all that kind of stuff. That's what we should be focusing on first, getting those sales and then, going from there. I've seen a lot of, people with great looking companies that don't really function, right? You have a great presentation, maybe even some branding. Maybe you're even like sponsoring events and things like that. But the business at its foundation is not working. It's not generating cash flow. It's not generating profit. They're not actually generating sales. And I think this is, going to be something that can help those type of people, which is make sure first things first, let's get to the cash flow, right? So, a great way to kind of go down this path is using deposits. So I think a lot of businesses could actually split their services up into deposits, and that would help them greatly. I mean, there's multiple businesses that I've had where a one-time payment may work a little bit, but if you split it up into a deposit, it works like a charm. And so I think there's a lot of people who could, you don't even necessarily have to lower your price, but you could just have a deposit and split that up in some kind of way that makes sense for you, right? They get XYZ once they make the deposit, then they make the remaining balance, they get the remaining product or service or whatever it is. So I think that's a way to try to get to the money and see if something will generate cash flow is you could keep that same price point that you need, but you could split it into deposits, which makes people more likely to pull the trigger on that initial deposit. I think that's a great way to see if you can get cash flow coming in and a great way to run a business in general going into the future. And a lot of times that may be the model that you continue to go with. And sometimes it might be, hey, just proving out that this works. Now that it works, we'll switch to the full amount because that's what makes sense for my business. I would understand that, but sometimes you might just keep running with it as your model of the deposits and then collecting the balances. There's nothing wrong with that. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into some questions here. And remember, we do allow you to send in questions. You can always send them via DM to @Kyle Hiersche or @Founding Without Funding. And you can also drop questions live in the chat. We are streaming this live on all the different platforms, so feel free to drop any questions you have there. Remember to get help starting or growing your business, go to foundingwithoutfunding.com. You can get the book there that will help you do it yourself. If you're looking to be a little bit more hands off and you want our team to do that for you, we can actually set up your business for you, your LLC. We can do your logo, your website, your social media, run your ads for you, all that kind of good stuff at yourdigitalbusinesspartner.com. So if you want to, build your business yourself, go to foundingwithoutfunding.com. It'll help you do that. And if you want to be a little bit more hands off, my team can actually do it for you. And you can visit yourdigitalbusinesspartner.com and we can handle that for you. Also, keep in mind that you can join my loan officer team. If you're a loan officer or you're looking to be a loan officer, you can join our team. You don't need to be licensed yet. We can help you get licensed, and you can do that at newmlo.com. We provide our team with the best rates, the most products, and most importantly, leads as well. So if you're a loan officer and you want to make a switch to a better company, go to newmlo.com. If you're interested in being a loan officer, which is a great high paying career, it's remote, it's on your own schedule, we can actually help you get licensed. You can do so and join our team. So if you need to get your mortgage license, go to newmlo.com. All right, let's go ahead and get into the questions here. So Jason is asking, how do I sell something that isn't fully built yet? Well, a lot of the times people won't even know that it's not built yet because you haven't built out the back end yet, but you want to build out the front end, right? So don't be confused to say you need to get out there and sell something that is not built out on the front end. It needs to be built out on the front end. So nobody should know that your back end isn't built out. And here's the key: you need to be able to accomplish the product or service that you're selling. So you can build out the front end, not have the back end necessarily figured out yet. And when you sell that on the front end, it's not going to, nobody's going to know that you don't have the back end built out yet. And here's the key: you need to be able to execute it manually. So maybe you haven't built out the back end of exactly how to systemize everything once somebody purchases it. And that's fine, because the first few of them you can do manually, execute those manually. And just find a way to deliver the product or service. And then once you've proven it out, you're like, okay, a couple people bought it. Let's really take the time and effort and sometimes money to build out the back end and systemize everything and automate everything. So you're not really going to be able to sell something you haven't built yet on the front end, but we're talking about building something as simple as possible on the front end to get your product or service out there in front of people, get to see if somebody purchases or not. If they do, execute it manually, however you have to figure out how to get it done. And then once you see people are purchasing it, take that time, those resources, and make sure you systemize and automate everything to deliver the best product or service possible at the lowest cost to you in the quickest amount of time. Okay, Monica is asking, what if someone asks for something I can't deliver? Well, you need to be honest. You don't want to, accept something that you can't deliver. Now, I would say accept everything you possibly can. If you think you could deliver it, it might just take you a lot of time, a lot of energy, maybe, money. I would try to take it on and deliver it. If you know you absolutely cannot, then just be honest and say you cannot. Now, this particularly applies to people like realtors and loan officers. They need to manage people's expectations and let them know, a lot of them are just like, yes, 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 we'll do that. We'll figure it out, because they want the sale. When really you need to manage your client's expectations up front. You need to let them know plainly that's not going to be able to happen. But what can happen is this, and I will make sure to work hard to make that happen for you. But it's just not possible to make X, Y, Z happen. So don't sell something you can't deliver on, and make sure to manage people's expectations. All right, question from Derek. Should I wait until my website looks professional? Well, there's really no reason your website shouldn't look professional nowadays. I mean, you can make it look professional instantly, right? Whether you do it yourself, whether you pay someone to do it, it's very simple, very easy, and very cheap nowadays. So your website should look great. That's what you should be focusing on when you're launching, especially if you're selling something online in particular. That's what you're focusing on. So don't focus as much on the back end, focus on that. So yes, it should look nice before you launch. It should be optimized. It should be have lead capture pages where people are able to put in their information and you automatically put them into your CRM and follow up with them and all that kind of stuff. And that can be done a little bit more on the back end, but the front end, you need to at least have the website up and looking great. So I would say, yes, you do need it up and looking good before you start selling, but that's one of the only things that you actually need to start selling. The rest of the stuff is kind of the stuff you can push back a little bit and not focus on as much until you know the product or service is selling. Okay, Ashley's asking, how do I price something when I've never sold it before? Well, if it's something that's out there, obviously do your market research and figure out who's, selling it for what. If it's something that's brand new concept, brand new product or service that nobody else is really doing, then you just have to figure out what's going to make you enough profit to scale up. And you want to put a lot of profit there, but at the same time, you need to make sure if people are going to buy it. So I always talk about lower prices for your product or service to start out with to see if somebody buys it at all, and then you could raise the price. The other aspect is deposits. Maybe your pricing stays the same, but you're able to lower the price to accept deposits, and that allows you to see if people are actually interested in going to pull the trigger and put some money up to make it happen, even if it's not the full amount of money. So your pricing really just needs to be done via research on other people, and it needs to be done via research on your company of what am I going to need in profit margin to not only get this done, but also to be able to have money to advertise to get clients and have that built into the margin as well so that it can actually scale up eventually. All right. Question from Carlos. What if nobody buys when I pitch? Well, maybe improve your pitch, keep switching it, right? And then eventually you may have to pivot. We actually have a whole episode about pivoting, which is really pertains to this as far as, you're going to be adjusting, right? So when nobody's purchasing things, you're going to be adjusting it, making sure you're keeping track of when people came in the system to see, hey, was it last week that got them to buy or the week before? Which pitch of mine, did they actually end up purchasing? And so you want to make sure that you're keeping track of this, but you're going to be adjusting and trying to dial it in. And then if you've been adjusting long enough and you've gotten it in front of enough people to where they should have purchased it for sure, then it's time to probably actually pivot into a new direction. Uh, all right, question here from Marcus. Can pre-selling hurt my reputation? No, I don't think so. Just make sure you deliver your product or service. Deliver it well. Just because you're selling before you've, built out and automated the whole back end and rest of it doesn't mean that you can't deliver a great product or service on time. You should still be focusing on that, right? You just want to get out there and sell it before you've done some of the back end, and just get a sale so that you can start doing the back end. But you have to deliver on it. I get the question a lot about what if I can't do this or can't do that? Then that means you're extending too much on the front end. That means you're promising too much on the front end. If you can't at least manually figure out how to deliver it, it might not be perfect and it might not be automated and systemized, but you can accomplish it. So if it's not something you can accomplish, then you're selling too much on the front end. You're going too far. All right. Question from Anthony. Should I form an LLC before selling? Yeah, I get this question a lot. I would. I mean, an LLC is only a couple $100 to form. It's very simple. And I would just make sure that you have everything set up. That way you can have your, sign up for your payment processor under your business name and make sure that all your sales are coming in legitimately. And most of the time you're going to need that, right? You're going to need that to set up a way for them to pay. You're going to want to sign up for Square or PayPal or whatever it is with your business name and your EIN and all that kind of good stuff. So yeah, I mean, I would say that an LLC is something it's so easy to set up and it doesn't cost much. I would say definitely make sure that you just set that up from the start. It's going to help you a lot. All right, we'll take one more question here from Hannah. What if competitors already exist? So we actually have a great episode a few episodes back about competition and competitors. And if something already exists, you just need to look into it more and say, is this something that I think I can do better, that I can do differently? And if it's not something that you can do differently or better, maybe you need to rethink. So there's a great book called Blue Ocean Strategy, which talks about how you can come up with ideas that are in the blue ocean, meaning it's not in the red ocean. And the red ocean is where all the competitors are eating each other, right? The sharks are all eating. There's blood everywhere in the water. Everybody's eating each other. And sometimes you can come up with an idea that's a blue ocean idea where you're in a whole other, just place and there are no competitors in what you're doing. And so that's a great way to think. It's a great book that you could read. Great way to think. And uh, it also, it shows that you can do things without competitors, and it has great examples in there. But I also like to add to that that doesn't mean that you can't become very successful and get very rich by doing things that have competitors out there and just doing it a little bit different, doing it a little bit better. There's plenty of people who have made giantly successful companies and who have made fortunes by doing the same thing that everyone else is doing, just doing it a little different, doing it a little bit better. And so don't think that you can't do something if there's competitors out there. You absolutely can. You just need to have your angle. So I really do the research on, are you really bringing something new to the table, something different to the table? And, if not, then maybe pivot to something where you feel it's a little bit more unique and you don't have as many competitors. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. But again, if you are looking to start or grow your business yourself, go to foundingwithoutfunding.com and get the book. It will help you do that. If you want to be a little bit more hands off and have my team handle that for you, we can set up your LLC. We can set up, your logo, website, your social media, run your ads for you, all that kind of good stuff. If you go to yourdigitalbusinesspartner.com. And again, if you're looking for a high paying career as a loan officer, you can join my team as a loan officer. We provide you with the best rates, the best loan programs, tons of loan programs, tens of thousands of different loan programs. And we provide you with leads. And you don't need to be licensed yet. We can help you get licensed. So if you're looking to become a loan officer and join our team, go to newmlo.com. That's newmlo.com. We can help you get licensed, bring you on board, get you leads, get you trained, and get you started in a great high-paying career that's remote, that's on your own schedule, and is a skill that you can use for the rest of your life. So foundingwithoutfunding.com to start or grow your business, yourdigitalbusinesspartner.com to have us start or grow your business for you, and newmlo.com if you'd like to join our team as a loan officer. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will see you on the next episode of the Founding